When you hear the phrase industrial revolution, what do you picture? Probably steam engines, right? Big, billowing smokestacks. But that's just the image. The real story, the force behind all that smoke, is what created the world we are all living in today. Literally, the foundations of our modern life. So imagine this. What if the world you knew just completely changed? Almost overnight. I mean, everything. How you live, how you work, the very rhythm of your day, just turned upside down in a couple of generations. Well, that's not a movie plot. That was the reality back in the 18th and 19th centuries. The transformation was so huge, it's honestly hard to even wrap our heads around it. So before all this went down, life was, well, it was slower. For most people, it was all about the countryside, about farming and living by the seasons. The sun told you when to work. But then industrialization hits, and bam, everything changes. Life is suddenly urban. It's all about the factory, and your entire day is ruled by the ticking of a clock. It was a total rewrite of what it meant to be human. Okay, so this engine of change, what did it actually do to society? Let's get right into it, starting with what industrialization really was and how it immediately started sending these massive shockwaves across the world. All right, so what exactly is industrialization? Well, at its core, it's this fundamental switch. We went from an economy based on farming, agriculture, to one all about making stuff in factories. This whole thing kicked off in England and then just spread like wildfire across Western Europe and North America. And believe me, it touched everything. And the first big effect? People started moving. A lot of people. See, with new tech on the farms, the population just exploded. And at the same time, everyone started leaving the countryside, flocking to these new factory towns for jobs. This created this incredible, explosive growth of cities. We call it urbanization. And it even pushed tons of people to pack up and leave Europe for good. Now, all this movement, all this change, it wasn't just about geography. It had a huge impact on a really human level. It didn't just build new cities, it built whole new social classes. And with new classes, you get new conflicts. And this right here is probably the biggest social shift of the whole era. You suddenly have two completely new groups of people appearing on the scene, the middle class and the working class. And these weren't just new names, they were completely different ways of living, born out of this new economy. So what was the difference? Well, you had the working class. They were the muscle, the engine of the whole thing. They were the ones in the factories, often in really, really tough and dangerous conditions. Then you had the middle class. These were your managers, your engineers, your doctors, the people who were actually running the new system. For them, this was a golden age of opportunity, a chance to build wealth and status based on things like education and hard work. And this revolution, it didn't just stay at work. It followed people home. Think about it. The traditional family, where everyone might work together on a farm, that was gone. Suddenly, work was a place you had to go to. This totally remade daily life for men, women, and even kids, and it reshaped the family in ways that, honestly, we're still living with today. So, you've got these huge new social structures, all these new problems. It was only a matter of time before politics got involved, right? People weren't just going to sit back and accept these new conditions. They started to organize. They started to demand change. And you can see how it all unfolded, step by step. First, you have the working class facing these awful, often dangerous jobs. So what do? They start talking to each other, they start to organize, they figure out, hey, there's strength in numbers. And that leads directly to labor unions. Groups formed specifically to fight for better pay, safer conditions, and, not having to work 16 hours a day. And here's the really important part. This wasn't just about what was happening inside the factories. The whole labor union movement was like a spark that lit a much bigger fire. It fueled these huge movements for all kinds of social and political reforms. We're talking everything from the right to vote to getting public schools. It completely changed the political game. Okay, let's zoom out for a second, because this whole revolution, it wasn't just happening in one country here or there. No, this thing went global. It literally redrew the economic map of the entire world. Before this, economies were pretty small scale, right? You grew stuff, you made stuff, and you sold it to people nearby. That was about it. But afterwards, for the first time ever, we get a single, interconnected world market. Suddenly, you could have raw materials from one side of the planet, shipped to the other, turned into a product, and then sold on a totally different continent. It was brand new. And that right there, that might be one of its biggest legacies. This idea of a global economy, this world market, it wasn't just a phase. It became a permanent part of our world. It's the system we're still operating in today. Which brings me to the big takeaway here, the most important point of all. This isn't just stuff you read about in a history book. The Industrial Revolution is something we inherited. Its effects are literally all around us, right now. I mean, just think about it for a second. The way our cities are laid out, that globalized economy that lets you order something online and have it show up at your door from halfway across the world, the whole idea of a 9-to-5, 5-day work week, even the ongoing debates we have about class and social reform, all of it. It's all a direct echo from that world that was forged by steam and steel. So, the forces that were let loose back then, they shaped the last 200 years of our history. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. What are the forces at play right now, in tech, in society, in our environment, that are going to be the engines of change for the next 200 years?